Before your mind begins to analyze, before doubt tries to interrupt, before past disappointments rise up to argue with what you are about to hear, pause, take a breath, still your spirit, because God is not whispering this season, He is announcing it. Something is shifting, not gradually, not eventually, but decisively. The heaviness you have carried, the losses you could not explain, the prayers you whispered when no one else believed, God has seen all of it, and He is declaring that 2026 will be the year when what was taken, delayed, buried, or stolen will be restored with unmistakable authority. There are seasons when God allows loss, not as punishment, but as preparation. Many people misunderstand this. They assume loss means abandonment, delay means denial, and silence means absence. But God does His deepest work when He is least understood. You thought the doors closed because you were forgotten, but they closed because God was redirecting your destiny. You thought what you lost was the end of the story, but God never ends a story with loss. He ends it with restoration that carries wisdom, strength, and authority you did not have before. Some of you are still grieving what disappeared suddenly. One day it was there, the next day it was gone. The relationship, the opportunity, the stability, the vision you built your life around, it vanished without explanation. And ever since then, you have been asking God why. Why now? Why me? Why after all the faith, obedience, and sacrifice? But God is saying what you lost was not wasted, and what you endured was not pointless. Restoration is not about returning you to who you were. It is about elevating you into who you were meant to become. God does not restore randomly. He restores strategically. He waits until your heart is refined, your dependence is purified, and your vision is strengthened. If He had restored it earlier, it would have owned you. If He had returned it before the breaking, you would have trusted the blessing more than the source. So God allowed the loss not to weaken you, but to strip away every false foundation so that when restoration comes, nothing will be able to shake it. You must understand this truth deeply. God is not limited by what you lost. He is not intimidated by the years that passed. He is not threatened by your age, your mistakes, or your current position. Time does not weaken God's ability to restore. It amplifies it. What feels late to you is still right on time for Him. And when God restores, He does not simply replace, He multiplies. He does not return things fragile. He returns them fortified. He does not bring back what broke you. He brings back what builds you. There are people listening who stopped dreaming because disappointment trained them to expect less. You told yourself it was safer not to hope, easier not to believe, wiser not to expect too much from God. But that mindset did not come from God. It came from pain. God never instructed you to shrink your expectations to survive. He is calling you now to expand your faith to receive, because restoration requires faith that can hold what God is about to release. God is saying that 2026 will expose who doubted Him and who trusted Him in the dark. Not because He needs to prove Himself, but because He wants you to see what faith produces. Faith is not believing when everything makes sense. Faith is standing when nothing adds up, when logic says stop, when history says it will not happen again. Faith is obedience without guarantees. And God rewards that kind of faith with restoration that silences every critic, including the voice inside your own head. You lost things that were dear to you, but you also lost things that were limiting you. You lost attachments that were draining your strength. You lost access to environments that were shrinking your vision. At the time it felt cruel. Now God is saying it was necessary. You cannot receive new wine while holding old containers. You cannot step into a restored future while clinging to expired seasons. God removed what could not go where He was taking you. There is a divine timing to restoration, and that timing is approaching. You may not see it yet, but shifts are already happening behind the scenes. Conversations are taking place you are not invited to. Doors are being unlocked you did not knock on. Hearts are being moved in your favor without your awareness. God is aligning people, resources, and opportunities in ways that will shock you. Not because they come suddenly, but because they come precisely. Some of you think restoration means getting back exactly what you had. But God is more creative than that. He restores function before form. He restores peace before prosperity. He restores identity before opportunity. And when those foundations are set, the external blessings follow naturally. You will not have to chase what God restores. It will locate you. It will recognize you. It will respond to your obedience. God is also restoring what you lost internally. Your confidence was shaken, your trust was damaged, your sense of worth was challenged. You started questioning yourself, doubting your decisions, replaying moments you wish you could rewrite. But God is restoring clarity to your mind, stability to your emotions, and authority to your voice. You will speak again with conviction. You will decide again without fear. You will move again without hesitation. There are wounds you never talked about, losses you never explained, tears you wiped away before anyone noticed. God noticed. He collected every tear. He recorded every prayer you thought went unheard. And He is saying that restoration is not only coming to your visible life, but also to the places no one else saw break. Healing is part of restoration. Peace is part of restoration. Joy is part of restoration. God does not restore partially. He restores completely. Some of you have been living in survival mode for so long that abundance feels foreign. You learned how to endure, not how to receive. You learned how to manage lack, not how to steward overflow. But God is reintroducing you to a life where you do not just survive, you thrive. And this will require a new mindset. Restoration demands responsibility. What God is about to place back into your hands will require wisdom, discipline, and humility. God is also restoring your reputation. Lies were told, assumptions were made, you were misunderstood, misjudged, and underestimated. People walked away believing false narratives about you. But God is a God of truth, and truth does not stay buried forever. Restoration will clarify what confusion distorted. God will vindicate you without you having to defend yourself. He will speak for you in rooms you never entered. You must not rush this process. Restoration is unfolding, not erupting. God is building something sustainable, not temporary. If He restored everything at once, you would not recognize the value of each piece. So He restores in stages, strength first, then structure, then substance. And every stage is purposeful. Trust the pace, honor the process. There will be moments in 2026 when you will look back and realize that the delay saved you, that the loss redirected you, that the silence matured you. And when restoration manifests, you will boast in what you gained. You will testify about what God taught you. Your story will become evidence. Your journey will become instruction. Your breakthrough will become hope for others who are still waiting. God is not restoring you to impress others. He is restoring you to establish you, to root you deeply, to position you firmly, to bless you in ways that do not fade when circumstances change. This restoration will not depend on people's approval, system stability, or trends popularity. It will be anchored in God's faithfulness. Prepare your heart, prepare your mind, prepare your habits, because restoration is not just about receiving, it is about sustaining. God will not restore what you are not ready to maintain. Align your life now with the future you are praying for. Walk like restoration is inevitable. Speak like restoration is scheduled. Believe like restoration is guaranteed, because when God promises, He performs. What you lost will not define you. What broke you will not limit you. What delayed you will not disqualify you. God is about to restore what you lost, not as it was, but as it should have been. And when it happens, you will know without doubt that this was not luck, not coincidence, not human effort, but the unmistakable hand of God moving deliberately in your life. God is also reshaping the way you see loss itself. What once felt like subtraction is now being revealed as transition. You thought something was taken from you, but in truth, God was moving you from a smaller capacity into a greater one. There are blessings that cannot fit into the old version of you. There are responsibilities that require a deeper strength, a sharper discernment, a quieter confidence. So God allowed the breaking, because breaking expands capacity. When a vessel is broken, it can be remade with more room to carry more weight, and the weight God is preparing to place on your life in 2026 is not light. It is meaningful, it is impactful, it is purposeful. You must understand this clearly. Restoration is not about comfort, it is about calling. God is not restoring you just so you can relax. He is restoring you so you can stand. He is rebuilding you so you can influence, lead, bless, and give in ways you could not before. The restoration coming will demand maturity. It will require restraint where you once reacted, wisdom where you once rushed, and humility where you once tried to prove yourself. God is not interested in restoring your past habits. He is establishing your future character. There are people who are about to re-enter your life, not by accident, but by assignment. Some will come to apologize. Some will come to reconnect. Some will come because God is using them as a bridge to what you prayed for years ago. But discernment will be critical. Not everyone who returns is meant to stay. Restoration does not mean reopening every door. It means God restoring order. He decides what belongs and what does not. You are not responsible to explain your boundaries. God is protecting what He is restoring. God is also restoring your authority. There was a time when your voice carried weight, when your presence shifted environments, when your words inspired confidence, but loss made you quiet. Disappointment made you cautious. Rejection made you hesitant. God is reviving your authority, not through noise, but through presence. When God restores authority, you do not need to announce it. People sense it. Circumstances respond to it. Resistance weakens in its presence. You may not realize it yet, but your endurance has already qualified you for what is coming. Many people desire restoration, but few are prepared for it. They want the blessing without the responsibility, the reward without the refinement, but you stayed. You endured confusion. You carried faith when there was no evidence. You continue to honor God even when outcomes did not align with your expectations. That endurance has shaped you into someone who can handle restoration without being destroyed by it. God is also restoring your sense of timing. Loss distorted your perception. It made you feel laid behind, outpaced by others. You watched people advance while you stood still. But God is correcting that narrative now. You were never behind. You were being positioned. What looked like delay was alignment. What felt like stagnation was preparation. In 2026, you will realize that God's timing protected you from premature exposure and unnecessary pressure. There will be moments when restoration feels overwhelming. You prayed for it, but when it begins to unfold, it will stretch you. Opportunities will require decisions. Growth will demand discipline. Favor will attract attention. And God is reminding you now, do not retreat when restoration requires courage. You did not come this far to shrink when the doors finally open. Walk boldly, but stay grounded. Receive confidently, but remain grateful. God is also restoring joy, not temporary excitement, but deep, steady joy. The kind that is not shaken by bad news or delayed outcomes. The kind that anchors you even when circumstances fluctuate. This joy will not come from what you receive, but from who you have become. You will no longer measure your worth by external validation. Your joy will be rooted in alignment with God's purpose. Some of you are carrying guilt about what you lost. You replay decisions, conversations, moments where you think you failed. But guilt does not come from God. It keeps you tied to a past that God has already redeemed. Restoration requires release. You cannot receive with hands full of regret. Let go of what you cannot change. God is not asking you to relive. He is asking you to rise from it. God is also restoring vision. You stopped seeing far because disappointment trained you to focus only on what was in front of you. But God is expanding your sight again. You will begin to imagine beyond survival. You will plan beyond necessity. You will dream beyond limitation. And this vision will not be reckless. It will be refined. God-given vision always comes with clarity and peace, not anxiety and confusion. There will be a shift in how you pray. You will no longer beg, you will align. You will no longer plead, you will declare. Because restoration changes posture. When you know God's faithfulness personally, your prayers carry confidence. You stop asking whether God can, and you start trusting how He will. That shift alone will transform your spiritual life. God is also restoring your ability to trust, not blindly, but wisely. Loss taught you caution, but restoration will teach you discernment. You will trust again, but with boundaries. You will love again, but with clarity. You will invest again, but with wisdom. God is not taking you back to innocence. He is leading you into understanding. In 2026, you will witness moments that feel surreal. You will stand in places you once only imagined. You will hold what you once prayed for with tears. And in those moments, you will remember the nights you doubted, the seasons you almost quit, the prayers you whispered with trembling faith. And you will know that God was faithful every step of the way, even when you could not see it. This restoration will not erase your scars. It will give them meaning. Your scars will not disqualify you. They will validate you. They will remind you that you survived, that you endured, that God carried you through what you thought would destroy you. And your story will give others permission to hope again. God is restoring you for impact, your life. Why? Allow speak louder than your words. Your peace will challenge anxious minds. Your stability will inspire unstable hearts. Your faith will awaken courage in those who have given up. You will not have to convince anyone. Your restoration will testify. Remain faithful now. Stay obedient now. Guard your heart now, because what God is about to restore is holy, purposeful, and powerful. Do not contaminate it with doubt. Do not sabotage it with impatience. Do not delay it with fear. Walk forward with expectation, humility, and unwavering trust. God has not forgotten you. God has not overlooked you. God has not changed His mind about you. The loss was real, the pain was deep, but the restoration will be undeniable. And when it unfolds, you will understand that everything you endured was shaping you for this moment. When God restores what you lost and establishes you stronger, wiser, and more aligned than ever before, God is also correcting the internal agreements you made during seasons of pain. In moments of disappointment, You told yourself things you never meant to believe forever. You said you would never expect too much again. You said you would never trust fully again. You said you would keep your heart guarded at all costs. Those statements were survival responses, not divine truths. God is now breaking those inner contracts and rewriting them with truth, strength, and hope. You are not meant to live cautiously forever. You are meant to live confidently under God's covering. There is a difference between protecting your heart and imprisoning it. Loss convinced you that isolation was safety, that emotional distance was wisdom. But God is restoring connection. Healthy, purposeful, God-ordained connection. Not dependence, not attachment rooted in fear, but relationships rooted in alignment. God never designed restoration to happen in isolation. He restores through people, rough conversations, through moments that awaken something dormant inside you. God is also restoring your sense of worth. You began measuring your value by outcomes, by success, by approval. When those things were removed, your confidence collapsed. But your worth was never dependent on what you had or what you produced. Your worth comes from God, and that value never decreased, not even in your weakest season. Restoration begins when you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start believing God is enough and He chose me. There are hidden strengths in you that only loss could uncover. Compassion was deepened, patience was refined, discernment was sharpened. You now see things others overlook. You hear what others dismiss. You sense what others ignore. That is not weakness, it is wisdom gained through experience. God is restoring you as someone who carries depth, not surface level faith. You will not be easily shaken because you have already survived what you thought you would not. God is also restoring momentum. You felt stuck, like nothing was moving no matter how much effort you gave. But momentum does not always come from force. It comes from alignment. When alignment happens, movement follows naturally. In 2026, you will notice doors opening without strain, progress happening without exhaustion, and opportunities aligning without manipulation. This is not coincidence. This is God honoring obedience. There will be moments when restoration challenges your humility. Favor will find you again. Attention will return. Influence will increase. And God is reminding you now to stay grounded. Pride corrupts restoration. Gratitude protects it. Never forget the nights you prayed with nothing but faith. Never forget the seasons when God was all you had. That remembrance will keep you anchored as God elevates you. God is also restoring your courage. Fear entered quietly after loss. It disguised itself as wisdom, caution, and logic. But fear is not from God. Courage does not mean absence of fear. It means obedience despite it. You will take steps in 2026 that once terrified you. Not because you suddenly feel fearless, but because you trust God more than your fear. There are prayers you stopped praying because you thought the window had closed. Dreams you buried because too much time passed. But God is not bound by timelines. What you thought expired was only pause. God delays, but He does not deny what aligns with His purpose. Restoration will surprise you by reviving desires you thought were long gone. God is also restoring your peace with the past. You will no longer be triggered by memories that once controlled your emotions. You will speak about former pain without bitterness. You will remember without reliving. That is a sign of healing. That is restoration at work. God is freeing you from emotional cycles that kept you tied to what He already redeemed. You will also notice a shift in how you respond to opposition. Where you once reacted emotionally, you will now respond calmly. Where you once defended yourself, you will now remain silent and trust God. Restoration brings confidence, not defensiveness. When God restores you, you no longer need to prove who you are. Your life speaks for you. God is positioning you to be a living testimony, not through perfection, but through perseverance. People will not be inspired by how flawless you appear, but by how faithfully you endured. Your story will give language to someone else's pain. Your breakthrough will give permission for someone else to believe again. Restoration is never just for you. It flows through you. There will be seasons of acceleration. Things that took years before will happen in months. What once required struggle will now require stewardship. But acceleration requires easiness. That is why God has been training you in patience. You learn to wait without becoming bitter. You learn to trust without immediate reward. Those lessons are about to pay dividends. God is also restoring your ability to rest. You lived in constant tension, always bracing for the next loss, the next disappointment. But God is teaching you that peace is not something you earn. It is something you receive. Restoration includes rest for your mind, rest for your heart, rest for your spirit. You will no longer live in survival mode. You will begin to recognize God's voice more clearly. Pain once distorted it, fear once confused it, but clarity is returning. You will know when to move and when to wait. You will sense when to speak and when to remain silent. That discernment is a gift born from restoration. God is also restoring your capacity to give. Loss made you hold tightly to everything, time, energy, resources, but restoration loosens that grip. You will give without fear of depletion because you trust the source, and generosity will unlock further restoration because God blesses hands that are open, not clenched. As restoration unfolds, do not compare your journey to others. Comparison distorts gratitude. God restores uniquely, intentionally, personally. What He does in your life will reflect your path, your lessons, your calling. Trust His design, trust His timing, trust His wisdom. There will be moments when you realize that the pain you endured gave you access to rooms you could never enter before. People will listen to you differently. Opportunities will recognize your depth. God will use your experience as qualification. Nothing was wasted. God is also restoring your sense of identity because loss has a way of confusing who you are with what happened to you. When things fell apart, you began to label yourself by the failure, the rejection, the You stopped seeing yourself through God's intention and started seeing yourself through painful outcomes. But God is now separating your identity from your experience. What happened to you was an event, not a definition. What you lost was a chapter, not the whole book. God is reminding you that you are still who He called you to be, even if circumstances try to rewrite that truth. There is a sacred confidence God is placing back into your spirit. Not arrogance, not loud self-assurance, but quiet certainty. The kind that does not need applause, the kind that remains steady when others doubt. This confidence comes from knowing that God has already gone ahead of you. You are not walking into uncertainty alone. You are walking into territory God has already prepared. Restoration gives you the courage to step forward without needing reassurance from people who never carried your burden. God is also restoring order. Loss brought chaos into your life, disrupted routines, scattered focus, fragmented priorities. But God is a God of order, and restoration brings alignment. You will notice your life becoming more structured, your decisions more intentional, your time more purposeful. Things that once felt overwhelming will begin to feel manageable. This is not because life suddenly becomes easy, But because God is restoring clarity and direction, there is also a refining happening in your desires. Some of the things you once wanted no longer satisfy you. Some ambitions no longer excite you. That is not confusion, it is elevation. God is purifying your desires so that what He restores will not distract you from your purpose. You will want what sustains you, not what drains you. You will pursue what aligns you, not what impresses others. God is restoring your discernment regarding opportunity. Before, you accepted what came because you were afraid nothing else would. Loss trained you to settle, but restoration trains you to choose wisely. You will no longer confuse availability with assignment. Just because something is offered does not mean it is from God. You are being restored with the wisdom to wait for what is right, not just what is immediate. There will be moments when people do not recognize the new strength in you. They remember the version of you that struggled, that needed help, that was uncertain. But restoration changes posture. You will no longer explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. God is teaching you to let growth speak. Silence, when guided by wisdom, is powerful. God is also restoring your emotional stability. You lived with heightened sensitivity, always alert, always bracing, always anticipating disappointment. But restoration calms the nervous system of the soul. You will respond instead of react. You will pause instead of panic. This peace is not passivity, it is trust anchored in God's sovereignty. You are also entering a season where your obedience will produce visible results. In the past, you obeyed without seeing outcomes. You trusted without evidence. That was the testing phase. Now God is moving you into a revealing phase. Your faithfulness will begin to show fruit, not to validate you to others, but to confirm to you that obedience is never wasted. God is restoring your spiritual stamina. You grew weary, not because you lacked faith, but because you carried too much alone. Now God is strengthening you to endure without exhaustion. You will serve without burning out. You will give without depleting yourself. This strength comes from alignment, not effort. There is also a restoration of hope happening quietly. Hope that once felt dangerous now feels possible again. You are daring to believe that life can be full, that joy can return, that peace can be lasting. This hope is not naive. It is informed by experience and anchored in God's faithfulness. You are not hoping blindly, you are hoping wisely. God is also restoring your ability to celebrate without guilt. Loss made you hesitant to enjoy good moments, as if joy might invite disappointment. But God does not want you living guarded against happiness. Restoration includes permission to rejoice, to laugh, to enjoy the fruit of endurance. Joy does not make you vulnerable, it makes you alive. There will be a renewed sense of purpose in your daily actions. Even small tasks will feel meaningful again. You will no longer rush through life waiting for something better. You will recognize that restoration is not only about big breakthroughs, but also about daily peace, consistent growth, and steady progress. God restores wholeness, not just highlights. God is also restoring your voice in spaces where you were once silent. You held back because you doubted your relevance, but your experiences have given you insight. Your journey has given you authority. When you speak now, it carries weight. Not because you are louder, but because you are grounded. As restoration continues, you will feel a deeper gratitude for simplicity. You will appreciate stability. You will value consistency. Loss taught you how fragile life can be, and restoration teaches you how precious it is. You will no longer chase chaos disguised as excitement. You will choose peace without apology. God is preparing you to steward influence responsibly. Whether influence over people, resources, or opportunities, He's restoring your ability to lead with integrity. Influence without character destroys, but God has refined your character through hardship, so that what He restores will not corrupt you. You will also notice that fear no longer dominates your decisions. It may still knock, but it no longer controls. Faith now has a stronger voice. Trust now speaks louder. This is restoration at work. Fear losing authority over your future. God is restoring you with depth, not just success. With wisdom, not just reward. With stability, not just speed. And this kind of restoration lasts. It does not fade with trends or depend on circumstances. It is rooted in truth, strengthened by experience, and sustained by God's faithfulness. You are not walking into 2026 uncertain and unprepared. You are walking in with lessons learned, strength gained, and faith refined. God has been intentional with every step, every delay, every redirection. Nothing was accidental. Nothing was wasted. Remain open, remain humble, remain expectant, because what God is restoring is not fragile. It is built to endure. And when it fully manifests, it will not just change your circumstances. It will confirm that God was present in every moment, even when you thought you were alone. So stand now with a settled heart and an awakened spirit, because this is not the end of your story. It is the unveiling of what God has been preparing all along. Every tear, every delay, every unanswered question has led you here to a season where restoration is no longer a distant hope, but an approaching reality. God has watched you endure without applause, remain faithful without evidence, and keep believing when logic told you to stop. And now the season is turning. What was taken will not return empty. What was delayed will arrive with purpose. What was broken will be restored with strength and wisdom you did not have before. You will walk forward, not as someone trying to recover, but as someone established, grounded, and confident in God's faithfulness. Let your heart stay aligned, your faith stay active, and your trust remain unshaken, because God is restoring what you lost. And what He restores will stand, will grow, and will testify to His power for years to come. Listen to me carefully, because this moment is not accidental. And this message is not random. Something powerful is stirring in the unseen realm. And if your spirit is awake, you can feel it. God is not whispering today. God is announcing. God is not hinting. God is declaring. There is a divine shift taking place, and it is aimed directly at your life. You have struggled, you have waited, you have endured seasons where nothing made sense, seasons where effort produced little reward, seasons where faith was the only thing you had left. But hear this with absolute clarity. God is about to bless you with millions, not as a fantasy, not as hype, but as a divine response to what you have survived, what you have obeyed, and what you have believed when logic told you to quit. Many people misunderstand how God works with abundance. They think wealth is random or reserved for the lucky or limited to a chosen few. But God is a God of order, purpose, and timing. When God prepares to release great provision, He first prepares the person who will carry it. You were not being delayed, you were being developed. You were not being denied, you were being disciplined. Every closed door trained your discernment. Every setback sharpened your character. Every lonely night strengthened your inner authority. God does not pour millions into unstable vessels, God expands the inner life before expanding the outer life. That is why your journey has been intense. That is why your process has been long. That is why your pressure has been heavy. God was stretching you so you would not break when abundance arrives. Understand this deeply. God does not bless carelessly. When God releases wealth, it is never just about money. It is about influence, responsibility, and impact. Millions in the hands of the unprepared become destruction, but millions in the hands of the disciplined become a tool of transformation. God has been watching how you handle little. God has been observing your integrity when no one was clapping. God has been measuring your obedience when obedience was uncomfortable. God has seen how you remain faithful even when rewards seemed absent. And now, because your heart has not turned bitter, because your faith has not collapsed, because your integrity has remained intact, God is opening a new chapter that will shock those who counted you out. There is a reason opposition increased right before this moment. Resistance intensifies when elevation is near. Confusion grows when clarity is about to arrive. Pressure multiplies when promotion is imminent. If you felt like everything was breaking at once, it is because everything was aligning at once. God often allows shaking before blessing so that only what is stable remains. What left your life was not a loss, it was a clearing. What collapsed was not your future, it was an obstacle. What failed was not a punishment, it was preparation. God removes what cannot go where you are going. Because where God is taking you requires focus, strength, and vision. God is about to bless you with millions because your mindset has changed. You no longer think like a survivor, you think like a steward. You no longer crave money for status. You understand provision as a responsibility. You no longer chase validation, you value purpose. This inner shift is critical. God does not respond to desperation. God responds to alignment. When your heart aligns with divine purpose, provision follows naturally. Wealth flows where vision is clear. Resources follow obedience. Increase pursues those who pursue God with sincerity and humility. Do not underestimate the power of what God has been building inside you silently. While others were advancing loudly, you were growing deeply. While others were showing results, you were developing roots. And roots matter more than fruit, because fruit comes and goes, but roots sustain longevity. God is not interested in a momentary rise. God is establishing lasting dominion. What God is about to place in your hands is not seasonal, it is generational. This is not a one-time breakthrough, it is a shift in financial authority. God is changing your position, not just your bank balance. There are ideas God has already planted in your spirit that you have not fully acted on yet. Those ideas are not random thoughts. They are divine seeds. God often delivers provision through ideas, strategies, connections, and opportunities that appear ordinary at first, but carry extraordinary potential. Do not dismiss small beginnings. Do not overlook subtle instructions. God rarely shouts directions. God guides through discernment. The millions will not fall from the sky. They will flow through channels God has already been preparing. Pay attention to what keeps returning to your heart. Pay attention to what excites your spirit while intimidating your logic. That is often where God hides your next level. God is also about to bless you with millions because your endurance has proven your readiness. You did not quit when it was hard. You did not compromise when it was tempting. You did not abandon your values when shortcuts were available. Many people pray for wealth, but few can carry it without losing themselves. God tested you in obscurity to protect you in abundance. God tested your patience to preserve your peace. God tested your motives to safeguard your mission. And because you passed tests that no one saw, God is about to reward you in ways no one can deny. Let this truth settle in your spirit. Delay is not denial. and silence is not absence. God works most powerfully when it appears nothing is happening. While you were wondering if God had forgotten you, God was rearranging systems, aligning people, and positioning resources. Divine timing does not move according to human urgency. God's calendar is precise, intentional, and unstoppable. When the appointed moment arrives, nothing can delay it. When God decides to release abundance, no force can block it, no criticism can stop it, and no past mistake can cancel it. You may have been told that dreaming big is dangerous, that expecting millions is unrealistic, that faith should be modest. But God is not limited by human comfort zones. God is not intimidated by large numbers. God is not constrained by economic conditions. Scarcity exists in systems, not in God. Limitation exists in thinking, not in divine supply. When God blesses, He blesses fully. When God provides, He provides abundantly. God does not do small when the assignment is large, and your assignment is larger than you realize. There is also a refining happening in how you see money itself. God is removing fear from your relationship with wealth. Fear repels abundance. Guilt distorts stewardship. God wants you free from both. Wealth in the hands of someone who fears it becomes a burden, but wealth in the hands of someone who understands it becomes a blessing. God is teaching you that money is a tool, not an identity. Provision is a resource, not a ruler. When money no longer controls your emotions, God can trust you with more of it. God is about to bless you with millions because your obedience is becoming consistent. Sporadic faith produces sporadic results. Consistent alignment produces sustained increase. You are no longer motivated only when results are visible. You have learned to move by conviction, not emotion. This maturity is rare and God honors it. When you obey without immediate reward, you demonstrate trust. And trust is the currency God responds to most powerfully. There are people connected to your future who do not know your name yet, but God knows the meeting point. There are doors assigned to you that have not opened yet, but God holds the keys. There are opportunities scheduled in divine timing that will make past struggles suddenly make sense. One connection can change everything. One idea can multiply rapidly. One decision aligned with God can unlock years of preparation in a moment. This is how God works, not gradually always, but suddenly when the foundation is ready. Do not let past financial pain limit future expectation. What failed before will not define what succeeds next. God does not recycle disappointment. God creates new pathways. What drained you before was a lesson, not a life sentence. God allows certain losses to teach wisdom, discernment, and restraint. Those lessons are now becoming assets. What once cost you is now protecting you. What once hurt you is now guiding you. Nothing was wasted. God is also blessing you with millions because your heart has remained soft in a hard season. Hardship often produces bitterness, but you chose humility. Pressure often creates pride, but you chose teachability. Waiting often creates resentment, but you chose gratitude. These inner decisions matter more than any external effort. God weighs the heart before releasing the harvest, and your heart has remained aligned. Even when circumstances tempted you otherwise, there is a responsibility coming with this blessing that you must not ignore. Abundance amplifies what already exists. If wisdom is present, it will multiply. If discipline is present, it will expand. If generosity present, it will overflow. God is not just blessing you for personal comfort. God is positioning you as a channel. Provision flows best through those who understand circulation. What God places in your hands is meant to move, to build, to restore, to uplift. This understanding is what qualifies you for more. you will notice a shift in how opportunities approach you. Instead of chasing, you will be chosen. Instead of forcing, you will be invited. Instead of striving, you will be positioned. This does not mean effort disappears. It means effort becomes effective. God replaces exhaustion with alignment. When you move in divine order, results come with less resistance and more clarity. Pay close attention to your inner voice in this season. God often speaks through conviction rather than volume. The guidance may come as a strong sense of knowing, a persistent idea, or a repeated nudge. Do not ignore these signals. Obedience to subtle direction often leads to massive outcomes. What feels small to act on today may unlock millions tomorrow. You are entering a season where your name will be mentioned in rooms you have never entered. Your work will be recognized by people you have never met. Your value will be acknowledged by systems that once overlooked you. This is not luck. This is alignment. God elevates quietly and confirms publicly. When God lifts, there is no debate. When God blesses, there is no confusion. Let go of the identity of struggle. Struggle was a season, not a destiny. Survival mode helped you endure, but it cannot define your future. God is transitioning you from survival to stewardship, from endurance to expansion, from hoping to managing. This shift requires you to think differently, speak differently, and decide differently. Expectation shapes behavior. If you expect increase, you prepare for it. If you expect growth, you make room for it. God is about to bless you with millions because you are finally ready to receive without guilt. Guilt blocks reception. God does not want you ashamed of abundance. God wants you grounded in purpose. Wealth does not make you less spiritual. Irresponsibility does. When wealth is aligned with divine intention, it becomes a testimony of trust, not corruption. There will be moments where the speed of change feels overwhelming. What took years to build internally may manifest externally very quickly. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay connected to God. Rapid increase requires stable habits. Success does not replace discipline. It demands more of it. God will keep you steady if you remain attentive. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time. What feels delayed is actually synchronized. God does not rush preparation, and God does not miss opportunity. The millions you are about to receive are arriving at the exact moment you can handle them without losing your soul, your peace, or your purpose. Do not announce everything you are becoming. Some growth needs silence. Some blessings need protection. God often instructs quietly before rewarding loudly. Move wisely. Choose humility even when recognition increases. Gratitude keeps the channel open. Arrogance restricts flow. This is a season where your decisions carry more weight. Small choices will produce large consequences. Guard your focus, protect your energy, invest your time intentionally. God is multiplying what you commit to Him. Waste will feel heavier now because efficiency is required for expansion. You will soon look back and realize that the struggle was shaping capacity. The waiting was building patience. The isolation was sharpening clarity. And the confusion was forcing dependence on God. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a role. And now the pieces are aligning. God is about to bless you, Eat millions, not to impress others, but to empower you to live fully aligned with divine purpose. This blessing will bring responsibility, visibility, and opportunity. Receive it with humility, manage it with wisdom, and move forward with confidence, knowing that the same God who prepared you for abundance will sustain you in it, guide you through it, and continue expanding what has only just begun to unfold through your life as this new reality starts revealing itself day by day through obedience, clarity, discipline, and unwavering trust in God's timing and direction as you continue walking forward without fear, without doubt, and without shrinking back from what is now opening before you. What you must understand now is that abundance is not just arriving around you, it is rising within you. God never changes a person's external reality without first transforming their internal capacity. Before wealth touches your hands, clarity touches your mind. Before millions flow into your accounts, discipline settles into your spirit. God is enlarging the way you think, stretching how you perceive value, sharpening how you make decisions. This inner expansion is proof that provision is near. Small thinking cannot sustain large blessing. So God has been dismantling limiting beliefs, breaking mental ceilings, and uprooting inherited fears about money, success, and responsibility. What once intimidated you will soon feel familiar, because God is normalizing increase in your consciousness before releasing it in your life. There are moments when God intentionally allows you to feel inadequate, not to discourage you, but to detach you from self-reliance. When you stop depending on your own strength, your own timing, and your own calculations, you become fully available for divine direction. God does not partner with pride, but God empowers humility. When you acknowledge that your ability alone is not enough, you create space for God's wisdom to lead you. This is why your confidence now feels different. It is quieter, deeper, and more stable. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are preparing to manage something significant. God is also refining your relationship with risk. Fear has kept many people from the blessing assigned to them. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of judgment. But faith does not eliminate risk. It transforms how you respond to it. God teaches you to move with discernment, not hesitation. Calculated obedience unlocks accelerated results. When God directs you to move, delay becomes disobedience. You are learning to trust instruction even when the outcome is not fully visible. This trust is not blind, it is rooted in relationship. You know God's character, and that knowledge gives you courage to act when others freeze. Do not be surprised if God begins separating you from environments that no longer fit your future. Certain conversations will feel draining. Certain mindsets will feel restrictive. Certain relationships will feel heavy. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. God protects destiny through distance. What cannot grow with you cannot go with you. Expansion requires space, and God creates that space by removing unnecessary weight. Release without resentment. Detachment is often a form of protection. You are stepping into a season where preparation meets opportunity. Preparation without opportunity is frustration, and opportunity without preparation is destruction. God aligns both perfectly. When the door opens, you will not panic because you are ready. When the offer comes, you will not rush because you are grounded. When the resources increase, you will not lose control because you have learned restraint. This balance is rare and it is powerful. God is also teaching you that wealth responds to order. Chaos repels increase. Discipline attracts it. How you manage your time now is how you will manage larger responsibilities later. How you honor small commitments now reveals how you will handle major ones later. God watches patterns, not promises. Consistency speaks louder than intention. This is why your daily habits matter so much in this season. Quiet discipline creates loud results. There is a divine intelligence being released to you. Solutions will come faster. Insights will feel sharper. Decisions will carry clarity. This is not coincidence, this is guidance. God supplies wisdom before wealth so that wealth does not become a burden. You are being trained to see beyond immediate gain and recognize long-term impact. This perspective will protect you from impulsive choices and short-term thinking that drains potential. You may notice that patience no longer feels like punishment. Waiting now feels purposeful. That is growth. When patience matures, it stops feeling like delay and starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer rushing outcomes. You are refining readiness. God's timing is not slow, it is precise. When the release happens, it will feel sudden, but it was carefully prepared. Understand that opposition does not disappear at higher levels. It changes form. As God increases your influence, discernment becomes essential. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Not every invitation is aligned. Wisdom teaches you when to say no, even when the offer looks attractive. Preservation is just as important as expansion. God's blessing comes with a responsibility to protect it. There will be moments where you are tempted to shrink back out of familiarity. Comfort with struggle can be deceptive. You have survived difficulty for so long that ease may feel unfamiliar. Do not retreat into old patterns simply because they feel safe. Growth requires embracing new responsibility, new visibility, and new expectations. God is not calling you to remain small, to stay comfortable. God is inviting you to grow to fulfill purpose. Your voice will carry more weight. Your decisions will influence more people. Your actions will set examples, whether you intend them to or not. This awareness is part of stewardship. Influence is not just about authority, it is about accountability. God trusts you with more because you understand the weight of impact. You are not careless with words, choices, or values anymore. This maturity is a signal that increase is justified. God is also healing your perception of worth. You are learning that value is not earned through exhaustion. You do not have to suffer to deserve provision. Struggle was a chapter, not a requirement. God delights in blessing with ease when the heart is aligned. Rest does not mean laziness, it means trust. When you rest internally, you make better decisions externally. There will be a noticeable shift in how people respond to you. Respect will come without demand. Recognition will come without pursuit. This is not because you changed who you are, but because alignment amplifies presence. When God elevates someone, the atmosphere around them changes. Favor becomes visible. Doors respond differently. Resistance weakens. Guard your inner life carefully. Success is loud, but purpose is quiet. Stay anchored. Stay attentive. Stay grateful. Gratitude keeps perspective clear and pride distant. A grateful heart recognizes the source of every blessing and remains teachable even in abundance. God is about to bless you with millions, but more importantly, God is blessing you with clarity, discipline, and wisdom to sustain it. Wealth is temporary, but purpose is lasting. When wealth serves purpose, it multiplies. When it replaces purpose, it disappears. You understand this now, and understanding is protection. As this new season unfolds, you will realize that nothing arrives empty-handed. Every blessing carries responsibility, and every responsibility carries grace. God never gives without empowering. You will have what you need to manage what you receive. Confidence will rise not from numbers, but from alignment. Peace will remain not because challenges vanish, but because direction is clear. This is not the peak, it is the platform. What God is releasing now is a foundation for greater impact ahead. Stay focused, stay obedient, stay humble. What begins as millions will evolve into influence, and what begins as provision will mature into legacy as you continue walking forward with steady faith, disciplined action, and a heart fully aligned with God's purpose unfolding step by step in your life. There is another dimension God is awakening within you now. And it is the understanding of authority, not authority over people, but authority over circumstances. For too long, situations seem to control your emotions, your confidence, and your direction. But God is repositioning you so that circumstances no longer dictate your faith. When God blesses someone with abundance, He also trains them to speak with conviction, to decide with confidence, and to move without fear. You are learning that your words carry weight when they are aligned with God's will. Silence once came from uncertainty, but now silence comes from discernment. You speak when it matters, and when you do, it shifts atmospheres. God is also revealing to you that provision follows obedience more than effort. Effort without alignment leads to exhaustion. Obedience with clarity leads to acceleration. You have worked hard before and seen little return, not because effort was wrong, but because timing was not aligned. Now God is synchronizing your effort with divine order. This is why things will begin to work faster, cleaner, and with fewer obstacles. You will notice that what once required constant struggle now responds with cooperation. This is not ease without responsibility. This is flow without resistance. There is a sacred separation taking place in how you define success. God is removing comparison from your vision. Comparison distorts purpose and breeds dissatisfaction. When you stop measuring your progress against others, you gain clarity about your own assignment. God does not bless copies, God blesses originals. Your path is specific, intentional, and uniquely designed. What works for others may not work for you, and what is assigned to you may not make sense to others. This does not require explanation, it requires obedience. God is also strengthening your ability to delay gratification. Many lose future abundance because they satisfy present appetite. Discipline is not restriction, it is direction. The ability to wait, to plan, to invest rather than consume is a sign of readiness for increase. God entrusts more to those who understand timing. You are no longer driven by impulse, you are guided by purpose. This shift alone separates you from many and qualifies you for much. Pay attention to how God is teaching you to manage peace. Peace is not the absence of pressure, it is the presence of trust. When peace remains, even while responsibility increases, it means your foundation is strong. God does not want wealth to steal your rest or success to disrupt your inner balance. The blessing God gives does not compete with peace, it protects it. You are learning to operate from calm assurance rather than anxious striving. There will be moments when the scale of what God is doing feels intimidating. You may wonder if you are truly capable of handling what is unfolding. This is where humility keeps you grounded and faith keeps you moving. God never calls without equipping. What you lack in experience, God supplies in wisdom. What you lack in resources, God supplies in strategy. What you lack in connections, God supplies in favor. You are not required to know everything. You are required to stay aligned. God is also sharpening your discernment regarding motives, both yours and others. Not everyone who celebrates you understands you. Not everyone who agrees with you is aligned with you. Discernment protects destiny. You are learning to read beyond words and observe patterns. This wisdom will save you from costly mistakes and unnecessary entanglements. God often protects by revealing, not by removing. You are entering a phase where generosity becomes intentional, not emotional. Giving driven by clarity carries impact. Giving driven by pressure drains purpose. God is teaching you to give from strength, not from guilt. True generosity flows from alignment, not obligation. This balance ensures that giving multiplies rather than depletes. God honors wise generosity because it reflects trust and stewardship. Expect moments of acceleration that feel almost unreal. Years of preparation can manifest in months of results. Do not question it. Do not downplay it. Receive it with gratitude and responsibility. When God moves quickly, It is because delay has already served its purpose. Acceleration does not mean recklessness. It means readiness has met opportunity. Your inner dialogue is changing, and that matters. Where doubt once dominated, conviction is forming. Where fear once spoke loudly, faith now responds calmly. This internal shift is evidence of transformation. God changes outcomes by changing inner conversations. What you consistently tell yourself shapes how you act, decide, and persist. God is aligning your thoughts with truth, so your actions produce stability. You may feel called to take steps that require courage rather than comfort. Growth often demands movement before full clarity. God rarely reveals the entire path at once. He reveals enough for the next step, and obedience unlocks the next instruction. Trust grows through movement, not stagnation. Standing still out of fear delays momentum. There is also a deepening reverence forming within you. Success without reverence leads to pride. Success with reverence leads to wisdom. You are becoming more aware that everything you have is entrusted, not owned. This awareness keeps you grounded, grateful, and open to continued guidance. God lifts those who remain aware of the source. As influence expands, accountability increases. God is shaping your character to match your capacity. What you tolerate privately affects what you sustain publicly. Integrity is not optional at higher levels, it is essential. God is strengthening your convictions so that pressure does not compromise values. This inner firmness is what sustains long-term success. You will notice that your tolerance for disorder is decreasing. Chaos no longer feels normal. Disorganization no longer feels harmless. This is not perfectionism, it is alignment. Order creates space for increase. God is guiding you to structure your life in a way that supports expansion rather than restricts it. This season will also require courage to receive. Sometimes the hardest part of blessing is believing you deserve it. God's favor is not earned by perfection, it is released through alignment. Receive without shame, accept without apology. Gratitude, not guilt, is the proper response to blessing. God is about to bless you with millions, but more importantly, God is anchoring you in wisdom so that what you receive becomes a testimony rather than a burden. You are being positioned not just to have, but to sustain, multiply, and direct resources with clarity and purpose. This journey is unfolding exactly as it should, guided by divine order, strengthened by discipline, protected by humility, and carried forward by unwavering trust in God as each step continues to open into the next. Now stand firm in His truth and let it settle deep within your spirit. This is not imagination, and this is not exaggeration. This is alignment. What God has been shaping in you privately is about to be revealed publicly. What felt hidden was never wasted. What felt delayed was never denied. God was arranging layers you could not see, strengthening foundations you did not yet understand, and preparing you for a level of responsibility that requires maturity, restraint, and unwavering faith. The blessing is not coming to change who you are. It is coming because of who you have become through obedience, endurance, and trust in God. Do not look back with regret. The past cannot hold you anymore. Those chapters have already served their purpose. God does not move backward, and neither should you. Forward is where provision waits. Forward is where clarity lives. Forward is where doors respond to your presence. Keep your heart guarded, your intentions pure, and your focus clear. What God is releasing into your life will demand wisdom daily, not just celebration momentarily. Stay grounded in gratitude. Gratitude keeps abundance flowing and pride away. As increase unfolds, Remember that confidence and humility are not opposites, they are partners. Walk boldly, but remain teachable. Lead decisively, but listen carefully. Build fearlessly, but stay accountable. God elevates those who can balance strength with submission and vision with discipline. You are not being lifted to compete with others, but to fulfill what was assigned to you alone. There will be moments when the magnitude of what God is doing leaves you silent. Let that silence become reverence, not fear. Let it remind you that the same God who opened this door will guide you through it. You are not stepping into uncertainty, you are stepping into order. You are not stepping into chaos, you are stepping into responsibility supported by divine wisdom. Hold fast to integrity. Guard your inner life more than your outer success. What you protect internally will sustain you externally. Wealth can expand reach, but only character sustains legacy. God is not just increasing what you have, God is establishing what you will leave behind. Move forward with steady faith. Do not rush out of excitement or hesitate out of fear. Walk with purpose, clarity, and restraint. The millions God is placing in your hands are not a finish line, they are a tool. A tool to build, restore, empower, and fulfill divine intention through your life. This is your moment of alignment, your season of expansion, your confirmation that obedience was worth it and waiting was not in vain. Keep walking, keep listening, keep trusting. God is faithful to complete what He has begun. And what is unfolding now is only the beginning of a far greater work moving through your life under God's guidance and authority. There is a moment when heaven interrupts your routine, when the familiar becomes too small for the future God has prepared, and a voice rises in your spirit that does not negotiate, does not explain, does not ask for permission. It commands. God said, pack your bag. It's time. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when everything makes sense, but now. This word is not gentle. It is urgent. It is not comfortable. It is disruptive. And if you feel a stirring in your heart as you hear it, it is because this message is not for everyone, but it is for you. Some of you have been living in delay long enough. You have been surviving where you were meant to advance. You have been settling where God planned expansion. You prayed for answers, but God is giving you instructions. You asked for clarity, but God is demanding movement, because revelation without obedience produces frustration, and prayer without action becomes noise. God is not speaking to entertain you. God is speaking to relocate you. Pack your bag means the season you are in has expired. It means the provision you relied on before will not sustain the journey ahead. It means the people who were comfortable with the old version of you may not recognize the one God is releasing now. And that discomfort you feel is not fear, it is transition. God never moves you to embarrass you. God moves you because staying would limit what God has already authorized. Some of you are waiting for confirmation from people who were never assigned to your destiny. You keep asking for permission when heaven has already given instruction. God said, pack your bag, because this next move is not up for discussion. You have outgrown the environment that once protected you. What was safe before has now become a cage. And if you stay, you will slowly suffocate spiritually while pretending everything is fine. God is not asking you to understand the full map. God is asking you to trust the command. Every great shift in destiny begins with obedience that feels unreasonable to the mind, but correct in the spirit. When God says it's time, delay becomes disobedience. Comfort becomes compromise. Familiarity becomes resistance. And hesitation becomes the enemy of fulfillment. Some of you think packing your bag means physical movement only, but God is speaking deeper than geography. God is talking about mindsets, attachments, habits, relationships, and identities that no longer align with where God is taking you. You cannot carry old limitations into a new season. You cannot bring yesterday's fears into tomorrow's assignment. God said, pack your bag because excess weight will slow you down. You have prayed for increase, but you still think small. You have asked God for abundance, but you still make decisions from lack. You have declared faith, but you still live cautiously. God is saying, the reason you feel restless is because your spirit already knows what your mind is still resisting. The journey ahead requires a new level of courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in spite of it. God is not moving you randomly. God is positioning you intentionally. There are doors waiting for your arrival, but they will not open until you show up. There are resources assigned to your obedience, not your comfort. There are connections prepared for your movement, not your excuses. Heaven responds to motion. God releases provision along the path, not before the step. Some of you are afraid because you don't see security in the next place. But God never called you to be secure. God called you to be faithful. Security is what the mind craves. Faithfulness is what destiny requires. When God says, pack your bag, it means the safety net you are used to trusting will no longer be your source. God is calling you into dependence, not weakness, but divine alignment. You have been asking God why things stopped working, why doors closed, why people left, why opportunities dried up. And God is saying, because it was time to move and comfort would have kept you stuck. Sometimes God removes what you lean on so you can learn to walk. Sometimes God disrupts peace so you can pursue purpose. Sometimes God allows instability so you can experience divine stability. Do not confuse resistance with rejection. Do not confuse delay with denial. And do not confuse discomfort with failure. What you are feeling is the pressure of growth. God is stretching your capacity because what is coming will not fit in the old structure. If God allowed you to stay where you were, it would shrink what God placed inside you. Pack your bag means prepare yourself internally. Prepare your faith for opposition. Prepare your heart for misunderstanding. Prepare your mind for responsibility. Because elevation always comes with expectation. God does not promote without accountability. God does not increase without maturity. And God does not move you forward without first strengthening you within. Some of you want the promise without the process. You want arrival without transition. But God is not a magician. God is a builder. And builders work in stages. The instruction to pack your bag is not about rushing. It is about readiness. It is about aligning your will with heaven's timing. When God says it's time, hesitation becomes the only risk. You have stayed too long trying to fix what God already finished. You have stayed too long explaining yourself to people who benefit from your stagnation. You have stayed too long hoping things would change without you changing. God is saying the season of convincing is over. The season of moving has begun. When God says pack your bag, it means provision is already ahead of you. Not behind you, not where you are standing, ahead. That is why staying feels empty. That is why repetition feels draining. That is why routines no longer satisfy. Your spirit is starving because it was designed for more than maintenance. It was created for expansion. Some of you are afraid to leave because you don't want to disappoint people. But obedience to God will always upset those who benefit from your delay. Not everyone clapping for you is a sign to go with you. Not everyone who knows your history is qualified to witness your future. God is not cruel for separating you. God is precise. You are not being pushed out. You are being called up. You are not losing. You are transitioning. You are not late. You are right on time. God's timing does not adjust to your comfort, it aligns with purpose. When God says it's time, heaven has already calculated every risk and accounted for every need. Pack your bag also means leave behind the voice of self-doubt that kept you small. Leave behind the identity shaped by survival instead of vision. Leave behind the habits that numbed your hunger for more. Leave behind the fear of starting again. God is not restarting you, God is repositioning you. You may not feel ready, but readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. Every major breakthrough begins with obedience that feels premature. But God never calls you based on your ability. God calls you based on divine assignment. What God initiates, God sustains. What God commands, God empowers. Do not wait for everything to line up. Faith moves before alignment becomes visible. Faith obeys before results appear. Faith trusts that God's instruction carries God's provision. If you wait until you are confident, you will miss the moment. Confidence comes after obedience, not before it. There is a future version of you that already knows this move was necessary. There is a testimony waiting on the other side of your decision. There is strength you have not yet accessed because it is reserved for the journey. God said, pack your bag because staying would cost you more than leaving ever will. You were not created to circle the same mountain. You were not formed to relive the same struggles. You were not designed to merely cope. God's voice is calling you forward because stagnation is not humility. It is disobedience disguised as patience. This moment you are standing in is not accidental. God does not waste timing, and God does not speak casually. When God said, pack your bag, heaven already weighed your capacity, measured your endurance, and confirmed your readiness. You may feel unqualified, but heaven never sends a command without also releasing the strength to fulfill it. What feels heavy in your hands right now will soon feel light in your testimony. What feels risky today will feel obvious tomorrow. God is not confused about you, even if you are still discovering yourself. Some of you are battling the fear of the unknown, but the unknown is only dangerous when God is absent. When God is present, the unknown becomes opportunity. God specializes in leading people into places they could never reach by logic alone. Reason will always demand proof before movement, but faith understands that proof follows obedience. That is why God speaks first and explains later. Explanation would satisfy your mind, but obedience transforms your life. You have been trained by struggle to cling to what you know, even when what you know no longer produces life. But God is breaking that pattern. God is dismantling survival thinking and awakening destiny thinking. Survival asks, how do I get through this? Destiny asks, what is God building through this? And when God says, pack your bag, it means the lesson of survival is complete. Now comes the assignment of influence. Some of you think you are being uprooted, but you are actually being replanted. And God never replants without intention. God knows the soil you need. God knows the environment required to stretch you. God knows the exposure necessary to refine you. You cannot bloom where you are not challenged. Comfort produces maintenance. Pressure produces purpose. There is a reason the old environment started rejecting you. There is a reason conversations feel shallow. There is a reason routines feel empty. God allows dissatisfaction when satisfaction would delay obedience. If you were fully content, you would never move. So God disturbs your peace not to punish you, but to propel you. Do not underestimate the power of a single obedience step. History is shaped by moments where someone moved without certainty, but with conviction. God honors movement that comes from trust, not perfection. You are not required to be flawless, you are required to be faithful. God can correct your direction while you move, but God cannot redirect someone who refuses to start. Pack your bag also means you are entering a season of accountability. God does not elevate casually. With new ground comes new responsibility. With greater influence comes deeper character. God is not just changing your location, God is refining your nature. The next season will expose what the last season concealed. That is why preparation matters. Some of you have been praying for visibility, but visibility demands integrity. You have been asking God to expand your reach, but expansion requires discipline. God is answering your prayers, but the answer requires change. God never blesses dysfunction. God transforms it. And transformation often begins with separation. Letting go is not loss when God is the one asking. Release is not failure when obedience is the motive. You are not abandoning your past, you are honoring it by not letting it define your future. Everything you experienced prepared you for what you are about to step into. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing was meaningless. God knows what you are capable of carrying. That is why some things cannot go with you. Not every relationship can survive your growth. Not every habit can coexist with your assignment. Not every comfort can remain when purpose calls. God removes distractions, not to deprive you, but to protect what God is building through you. You are stepping into a season where excuses will no longer work. God is sharpening your discernment. You will sense quicker when something is misaligned. You will feel heavier conviction when you delay obedience. This is not pressure. This is maturation. When God trusts you with more, God expects more. Do not look back wondering if you made the right decision. Obedience settles the question before doubt can speak. When fear tries to remind you of what you left, remind fear of who sent you. The authority behind the command matters more than the uncertainty of the path. God's word carries weight because God's word creates reality. There will be moments when the journey feels lonely. That does not mean God is distant. Solitude often precedes clarity. God speaks most clearly when distractions are stripped away. Silence is not absence, it is alignment. In those quiet moments, God reshapes your confidence from people dependent to God rooted. You are entering a phase where your faith must stand without applause. Not everyone will understand your move. Some will call it reckless, some will call it foolish. But obedience does not seek consensus, it seeks alignment with God. Those who are meant to benefit from your obedience will understand later. God is not impressed by hesitation disguised as wisdom. Caution has its place, but when God speaks clearly, delay becomes resistance. You cannot protect yourself into purpose. You cannot analyze yourself into destiny. There comes a point where trust must override logic. That point is now. Pack your bag also means pack expectation. Expect opposition. Expect growth. Expect refinement. Expect favor. Expect challenges that stretch you and victories that humble you. God never sends you forward empty-handed. What you carry now is not what you will carry later. The journey itself will multiply your capacity. You are about to discover strengths you did not know you possessed. Pressure reveals potential. Responsibility awakens authority. And obedience unlocks dimensions of faith you cannot access through comfort. God is not testing you to fail. God is training you to lead. The fear you feel is not a warning, it is a signal that you are stepping beyond familiarity. Courage is not loud confidence, it is quiet obedience in the presence of uncertainty. God does not eliminate fear. Before movement, God teaches you to move despite it. Do not romanticize the past. The past served its purpose. Gratitude is healthy, but attachment is dangerous. You cannot drive forward while staring into the rear view. God's instruction is directional. Forward is where provision is. Forward is where growth is. Forward is where God's next instruction will meet you. This move is not just for you. There are people whose lives will change because you obey. There are doors that will open for others because you walk through first. Obedience multiplies impact. Disobedience limits influence. What God is doing through you is larger than your comfort. You may feel small right now, but obedience magnifies authority. You may feel weak, but weakness surrendered to God becomes strength. God does not choose the loudest or the boldest. God chooses the willing. Availability matters more than ability. Pack your bag means stop negotiating with doubt. Stop entertaining fear. Stop waiting for permission from the past. The call is clear. The timing is now. The preparation has been ongoing. What you thought was delay was actually development. This next season will require consistency, humility, and resilience. God is not taking you into ease. God is taking you into effectiveness. Ease fades. Purpose endures. And when purpose anchors you, storms cannot stop you. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into alignment. Everything that looked unstable was simply being rearranged. God was clearing space. God was removing interference. God was making room for what you prayed for but could not carry before. When the voice of fear rises, remember this: God does not call you forward to abandon you. God does not instruct without intention. God does not send without support. The same voice that said, "Pack your bag," also said, "I will go before you." There is a hidden danger in staying too long where God has already finished speaking. Silence from heaven does not always mean wait. Sometimes it means you were supposed to move when God spoke the first time. God does not repeat instructions endlessly. God expects discernment. God expects response. When God said, "Pack your bag," that word carried an expiration date, and delayed obedience slowly turns clarity into confusion. That is why some of you feel spiritually restless. It is not that God stopped speaking. It is that movement was required to unlock the next word. God often moves people before they feel emotionally prepared, because emotions are shaped by environments. If God waited for comfort, destiny would remain dormant. Faith matures when it is exercised, not when it is protected. God allows you to feel uncertain so that dependence shifts from self-confidence to God. Confidence. The moment you stop trusting your own calculations, you begin to experience divine guidance. Some of you have mistaken God's patience for approval. Just because you have survived where you are does not mean you were meant to remain. Survival is not the goal, transformation is. God did not create you to adapt endlessly to limitation. God created you to advance, to influence, to build, to steward what God places in your hands. And stewardship requires movement. Pack your bag also means stop rehearsing the same prayers without corresponding action. Prayer aligns your heart, but obedience aligns your life. There are answers God has already released, but they are waiting on your movement to manifest. Heaven is not withholding, heaven is waiting. God is not delaying, God is watching to see if you trust the instruction enough to act. Some of you are standing at the edge of something unfamiliar, and fear is trying to convince you that unfamiliar means unsafe. But familiarity is not protection when God has moved on. The safest place you can ever be is in alignment with God's will, even when the path is unclear. Danger exists only when you cling to what God has already outgrown for you. God is shifting your identity in this season. You are no longer being shaped by what you endured, but by what you are assigned to carry. Trauma taught you endurance, but purpose will teach you authority. Pain trained your resilience, but obedience will train your discernment. God is not erasing your past. God is redeeming it by giving it meaning. You are about to enter environments that will demand clarity of conviction. Your faith will no longer be theoretical. It will be tested through decisions, through responsibility, through consistency. God is calling you into a place where your words must align with your actions, where integrity matters more than image, where character speaks louder than declaration. Pack your bag means prepare for responsibility, not just reward. God does not bless irresponsibility. Increase requires structure. Expansion demands discipline. God is not just opening doors. God is shaping the person who will walk through them. What you become in the process matters as much as what you receive at the destination. Some of you are afraid that if you move, you might fail. But failure does not disqualify obedience. Refusal does. God can redeem mistakes, but God will not bless resistance. Every step taken in obedience becomes instruction. Even missteps become teachers when your heart is aligned with God. God is training you to listen beyond emotion. Obedience often feels costly before it feels rewarding. But cost does not mean loss when the investment is guided by God. What you release now makes room for what God intends to entrust to you later. Empty hands are not weakness, they are readiness. Do not confuse speed with urgency. God's command to move is not panic-driven, it is purpose-driven. Rushed decisions come from fear, but obedient decisions come from conviction. When God says it's time, there is peace beneath the pressure. That peace is not comfort, it is confirmation. You will notice that as you move forward, clarity increases. Direction sharpens after decision. God reveals more as you obey more. Light comes step by step, not all at once. Faith was never meant to eliminate uncertainty, it was meant to override it. Some of you are about to outgrow conversations that once felt important. Your appetite is changing because your assignment is changing. God is refining your focus. Distractions will feel heavier. Compromises will feel louder. This is not condemnation, it is alignment. God is calling you into a season where silence becomes strength. You will not need to explain every decision. You will not need to defend every move. Obedience does not require justification. Those who are meant to understand will see the fruit. Those who are not will eventually fall silent. Pack your bag also means prepare to lead yourself before you lead others. Consistency will matter more than enthusiasm. Discipline will matter more than inspiration. God is not impressed by emotional highs. God is honored by sustained obedience. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing out. Timing in God is precise. What felt like delay was protection. What felt like waiting was preparation. And now the season has shifted. What worked before will not work again. New strategies are required for new territory. God is inviting you to trust that provision is not tied to place but to obedience. Your source does not change when your environment changes. God remains constant. When God sends you, God sustains you. When God directs you, God defends you. You will face moments where you question your decision. That does not mean you were wrong. Doubt often surfaces when growth begins. Stay anchored. Return to the instruction. Remember the moment God spoke clearly. That clarity is your compass when emotions fluctuate. This move will demand patience. Progress may not be immediate, but momentum will come. Roots form before fruit appears. God often works beneath the surface before revealing results. Trust the process you cannot yet see. You are stepping into a chapter where obedience will shape legacy. Your choices will ripple beyond your own life. What you model will matter. What you build will endure. God is entrusting you with influence because God has shaped your heart through pressure. Pack your bag means let go of the illusion of control. Control creates anxiety. Trust creates stability. You do not need to manage every outcome. You need to follow every instruction. God hand, results. Your responsibility is obedience. Do not shrink back, because the path feels narrow. Narrow paths lead to focused purpose. Wide paths lead to distraction. God is narrowing your options so your impact can expand. Focus precedes fruitfulness. This season will stretch your faith vocabulary. You will stop saying someday and start saying now. You will stop asking what if and start declaring even if. Even if it's hard, even if it's slow, even if it's unfamiliar, obedience remains non-negotiable. God is not calling you to perfection. God is calling you to perseverance. Keep moving even when progress feels small. Momentum builds through consistency. Small steps taken faithfully carry more power than large plans left enacted. When you feel overwhelmed, return to this truth: God spoke first. Your movement is a response, not an initiation. You are not inventing a future. You are walking into one God already prepared. There is a refining fire in transition that exposes what comfort kept hidden. When God says, pack your bag, God is not just changing scenery. God is confronting attachments that quietly ruled your decisions. Some of you did not realize how much fear guided your choices until movement challenged it. Fear thrives in stillness. Obedience starves it. As you move, fear loses authority, because authority belongs to the voice you obey. God is teaching you to discern between urgency and impatience. Impatience runs ahead of God. Urgency moves with God. Urgency carries peace even when speed increases. When God speaks clearly, urgency is holy alignment. That is why this instruction feels weighty but calm, demanding but grounded. The pressure you sense is not panic, it is purpose activating. Some of you are discovering that your strength was never meant to be private. God is transitioning you from preservation to contribution. You survived seasons that taught you how to endure, but now God is asking you to invest that endurance into building something that serves beyond you. Survival seasons shape character. Assignment seasons deploy it. Pack your bag means stop shrinking your expectations to match past disappointments. God is not limited by what failed before. Previous outcomes do not define future capacity. God operates beyond your history. What did not work then does not disqualify what God is doing now. Wisdom is remembering without being restrained by memory. You are learning that obedience does not require perfect clarity. It requires clear allegiance. When God speaks, alignment matters more than explanation. Explanation satisfies curiosity. Allegiance sustains obedience. God is training you to move on instruction, not emotion, because emotions fluctuate, but instruction remains. Some of you have been holding on to certainty as if it were a requirement for faith, but certainty belongs to sight, not trust. Faith moves while questions remain unanswered. God allows unanswered questions to deepen reliance. Answers can create independence. Trust creates intimacy with God. As you move, you will notice resistance from places that once welcomed you. That resistance is not rejection, it is confirmation that growth is occurring. When you change internally, external dynamics must adjust. God allows friction to refine resolve. Resistance strengthens conviction when obedience anchors it. God is also teaching you how to travel light. Carrying unnecessary burdens slows obedience. Guilt, resentment, comparison, regret, these are weights that exhaust the spirit. God is not asking you to deny your past, but to refuse to let it occupy your future. Healing often accelerates when obedience begins. Pack your bag means recognize that provision is often disguised as instruction. God's guidance is itself a gift. Direction saves time, protects energy, and positions favor. When God directs you, God is already investing in your success. Disregarding direction is the most expensive mistake a person can make. You are entering a space where your inner dialogue must mature. Complaints will no longer relieve pressure. Excuses will no longer satisfy conviction. God is elevating your language because words shape direction. What you speak repeatedly becomes what you follow. God is aligning your speech with your assignment. Some of you are realizing that your greatest limitation was not lack of resources, but lack of permission from yourself. You waited for circumstances to approve what God already authorized. Obedience is giving yourself permission to trust God above your own hesitations. When God speaks, permission is implied. God is expanding your vision, so you stop interpreting delay as denial. Delay is often the classroom where discernment is taught. God trains your patience not to frustrate you, but to prepare you to handle what is coming without losing yourself. Capacity grows quietly before it is tested publicly. As you pack your bag, understand that transition requires humility. New seasons expose new learning curves. Humility keeps you teachable. Pride resists adjustment, but humility adapts quickly. God gives grace to those willing to learn while moving. You may feel moments of grief for what you are leaving. Grief does not mean disobedience. It means you valued what was. Honor the past without worshiping it. Gratitude keeps your heart soft, while obedience keeps your life aligned. God is not asking you to forget. God is asking you to advance. God is also revealing that identity is not rooted in location or role. Identity is anchored in alignment with God. When you know who you are in God, movement does not threaten you. Change does not unsettle you. You remain grounded even while everything around you shifts. Pack your bag means expect refinement in motives. God will challenge why you want what you want. Pure motives attract sustainable favor. God is not impressed by ambition alone. God honors intentions aligned with purpose. As motives purify, authority increases. You are learning to value progress over applause. Applause can distract, progress builds legacy. God is shaping you to work faithfully without constant affirmation. Faithfulness in unseen places prepares you for visible responsibility. God is calling you to trust that timing is strategic. If God had moved you earlier, you would have lacked discernment. If God delayed longer, stagnation would have weakened your resolve. Timing is not accidental, it is intentional precision. As you move forward, you will notice that some prayers change. You will stop asking for escape and start asking for wisdom. You will stop asking for ease and start asking for effectiveness. Maturity reshapes prayer language because purpose reshapes desire. Pack your bag also means accept that obedience sometimes feels lonely because it separates you from consensus. Consensus is comfortable, but calling is specific. God does not call groups. God calls individuals and then builds alignment through obedience. You are stepping into a place where consistency will outlast excitement. God values steady obedience more than emotional surges. Momentum is built through daily alignment, not occasional inspiration. Faithfulness compounds quietly until impact becomes undeniable. God is training you to recognize confirmation through peace, not popularity. Peace is not the absence of challenge, it is the presence of alignment. When your spirit is anchored, storms do not derail you. They simply test what you trust. Some of you are realizing that the instruction to pack your bag was mercy. Staying would have hardened you. Moving will soften you. God protects your heart by shifting your environment before bitterness takes root. Obedience preserves sensitivity. You are being invited to trust that God's wisdom exceeds your experience. Experience teaches patterns. God teaches purpose. Patterns can limit, purpose expands. When God disrupts patterns, it is to introduce something greater than repetition. Pack your bag means stop waiting for validation and start walking in conviction. Validation fades, conviction sustains. Conviction anchors you when circumstances fluctuate. God builds conviction through obedience tested by time. This journey will not always be loud. Some of the most significant growth will happen quietly. God works deeply before God works visibly. Roots deepen before branches spread. Trust the unseen work taking place within you. As you continue forward, let obedience remain your compass. Let trust remain your posture. Let humility remain your strength. God's instruction is not heavy when your heart is aligned. Movement becomes natural when resistance is released. God said, pack your bag because the season behind you has completed its assignment, and the season ahead is waiting for your arrival, your obedience, your growth, and your continued trust in God's voice as you move forward into what God has already prepared.